Welcome back everyone for another week. This is one that you guys have kind of asked for. We did a bit of a poll on Facebook whether people wanted to see a bit more on the 34 updates. We'll keep going with the Pulsar. A couple of people are keen to see what was going on with the Skyline, so yeah, we've just got a video about that. So this week we've been we've got some of the rear brakes kind of semi-sorted, and we'll actually be doing a kind of budget ride height sensor setup. So stick around for that. Let us know what you think. Cheers guys. Welcome back everyone. Another week here. This week is going to be playing around with the Skyline. We've had our brake rotors turn up from Ample. Just the old mock-up one down there, but the new one's up the front of the car. So we'll try and get these calipers on, mounted, plumbed, all that ready to go. Also had a delivery, this one's kind of cool, of some ride height sensors. So in the past, we were actually at Malala a while ago, start of the year now, and coming through turn one, Dougie was out there giving us a hand. He was noticing that the car didn't look like it was squatting coming out of turn one. And I was struggling with kind of corner exit drive. It would just light the back tyres up and slide. Doug was under the impression that it's not squatting. I have a feeling that it was actually probably in the bump stops. So it's really hard to tell from the seat. Like I said, it felt to me sitting in it, driving it, like it was already loaded and it was hitting the bump stops, and that's when it was breaking away. Doug didn't think that it looked like the ride height was low enough to be in the bump stops. So what we're going to do, this here will work really well. So these are just like a 3-pin 0 to 5 volt ride height sensor. So back when I used to muck around with airbag cars and that, AccuAir use a similar setup to that. And all it does is basically that just gives you, a ride height. So we can calibrate that. So chances are what I'll probably do to calibrate it is once it's all wired in, I'll push the wheel into the bump stop, and that'll basically be 0. From there, we'll just kind of measure down in 10 mil increments, 20 mil increments. And that then should get us our ride height. So then we can go back through the data logs afterwards and see, the car was at 0 ride height wise, so we know that okay, it was all the way in the bump stop. Maybe we do need to bump the spring rate up a bit. We've got a fairly stiff spring in the rear. That's kind of why we're a bit confused, but with the aero, you don't know unless you do all your CFD and all of that, and if the aero is actually doing what you think it's doing. So with the ride height sensors, you can then work out your aero. So we could get a main straight like tail and bend where the car is in a fairly neutral state, and see what the car's kind of static ride height is, and then at say 200k an hour, what the car's ride height is front and rear. And that then kind of, you can go backwards and work out that at 200k an hour, we've got 20 mil of squat, and what the spring rate is and X, Y, Z. You can actually get a kind of really pretty accurate, from what I understand, idea of how much weight you've then got on the front and rear tires, and that's kind of going to let you know roughly what your aero load is. So that'll be kind of cool to look at once we get to that stage, but hey, for now we just need to get them in, mounted up and wired up. So I think we'll start off with the calipers. One thing that I don't like, and I do on all my brakes, is these are all aluminium housings or aluminium castings. I don't like threading into aluminium, especially on brakes. It's probably fine for a road car, but something that we're putting on, taking off, putting on, taking off, like a road car probably has those bolts undone 10 times in its lifetime. We'd do it 10 times in a year. So I like to go through and just put a helicoil in, because what this is doing at the end of the day is this means that we then have a large steel. So instead of a 1/2 inch into here, we have a larger thread into there, but then we're only running our bolt in and out of another steel thread. So you can already see that these threads are a little bit galled up and a little bit average. So by putting that steel insert in, we know that from there on in we should be fine, and we don't have to worry. So we'll do that. If you haven't seen them before, they kind of work out when you buy the kit. You can buy the kit for whatever you need. This is a 1/2 inch -20, which is 1/2 inch UNF. It'll come with your drill, your tap, and then your insertion tool. So I'll try and do a bit of a time lapse to show you guys how that works. So should be a good week, something a bit different, bit of a break up from the Pulsar. Yeah, it'd be good.
Here we start drilling out the holes. I quickly get frustrated with this, and we'll move over to the vise in a sec, and then we'll roll in with starting to tap these holes.
Not sure what's going on with the GoPro. Yeah, so you want to wind it forwards until you kind of feel it loading up, and then you want to wind it back, and that'll break that kind of chip loading off. Sometimes once I'm in a bit of a way and I know that I've got a decent thread to follow, because you don't really want to stop, take it out and then start again. I'll just take it out, make sure it's clean, clean the hole out, make sure it all looks alright in there. Bit more Trefilex. This stuff is like gold if you're cutting anything. Don't need a lot of it, but it works brilliant. Now wind this in by hand, because you want to make sure that you get back onto the threads that you've already cut. You don't want to start cutting over another set of thread. Alright, we're back on. Back in it. Pushing those nice cut pieces through the other side. We'll get this side done. We'll flip it and do the other ear in a minute. And once we're back in the garage, we'll wind the helicoils back in. Alright. I like winding these all the way through and just pop it out the other side, because that way then sometimes I've had, if a bit gets stuck in the back side of the threads here and then you wind it backwards, it can gall the thread up and just do some weird stuff. So for the sake of it, wind that all the way through, take that out. We've got a nice chase thread in there, just have a bit of a look at it. Yeah, much nicer than what was there. Flip it over and we'll do this tab now. Alright, back in the garage here. So now that we've got those holes drilled out, that's where this little tool comes in. So you set the little tab, it's in there, just goes in this tool. You just wind this in. They can be a little bit tricky to start sometimes. There we go. So these ones here were 1.5D. So what that means is they're 1.5 times, so their length is 1.5 times their diameter. So any bolt should really be, minimum engagement should be whatever the diameter is. So if you've got a 10mm bolt, you want at a minimum 10mm of engagement. So these are a bit long. They're just poking out the bottom just a little bit, but you can snip these just with a pair of side cutters just to trim that excess length off. When they're in a normal like bottoming hole, so like in a block or something like that, they come with this little tool, and what that does is that actually snaps the little end off that we're using currently to wind it in. All I'm doing here is just making sure that we're just below flush. Just got a fraction more. Beautiful. So now these are just hanging below a little bit. So all I'll probably do is just grab a pair of side cutters and just trim them off, just so there's only a little bit hanging out. But other than that, it's worked pretty well. We'll grab our bolts that we've got. Fingers crossed I ordered the right. There we go. So that threads in there nicely, no slop, no nothing. That worked quite well. Rinse and repeat. Get the other side done. I really got to turn that to silent because when I'm editing, and probably when you guys are watching, you'll hear that and you'll check your phone. That's just mine. Not going to break off because it hasn't got anything in the back to support it, so happy with that. So I forgot one vital thing. These rotors that we're using, they're a Mustang rotor, 330mm diameter, so quite a decent upgrade from what we had. But the issue is they run a 14mm stud, 14mm stud. So there's way too much slop on the holes for me to be able to use that. What my initial plan is I'm just going to chuck it up in the mill, and we'll just spot in 5 new holes at 12mm. Won't make any difference, and that'll be fine. It does kind of center on the center bore a bit, but not well enough that I'm happy to run it. I think it'll end up being off balance and yeah, just causing issues. So I may also make a centering ring for the inside, but it just being on the studs should be plenty. But either way, I'll get it on there. I want to make sure these calipers fit up and bolt up nicely, so we'll get on with it. Well, that looks like that's going to work a treat. Pads are right at the outer edge of the rotor and nice and consistent. Pads are on the inside of the rotor beautifully. It is offset a little bit to the front, but nothing that looks like it's going to be concerning. Another thing with these DBA, I think they're T3 rotors we got, is they come with the brake paint. So you've got your green, orange and red. So we use a very similar thing on the front, just to kind of see what our brake temperatures are. With these So when we're green, so what'll happen is when we reach 458 degrees, that green will turn to white. If we go to 550 degrees, the orange will turn yellow. 630, the red will also turn white. Last time we went out, the reason for this upgrade was, I think the paint that we had was a slightly higher rating, but I think we worked out that we'd seen like 700 degrees. So too small a rotor, needing too much pressure, etc, etc, too small a caliper, all of that. So bigger rotor, better caliper, hopefully that'll fix the braking issue that we had on the rear. I'll have to just take these rotors down and chuck some new stud holes in them. I won't bother pulling the other one out of the box, not much point. I'll have to take this one off anyway. So what we might do is I might get into doing these ride height sensors. Chuck them in, we'll have a bit of a look, see what kind of room we've got, where we think we might be able to pick up from. You want to try and go somewhere for what are basically resolution. You want to try and get as far out as possible, closest to the wheel, because it's back to that motion ratio. If you're all the way inboard, 10 mil at the wheel might only show up 1 mil, and that there, it's not going to give you the best accuracy. So we'll have a look, see what we can do, see what we can come up with. Alright, so it's just taken me probably the best part of half an hour playing around, trying different spots. You're probably going to watch in 10 seconds. So what I think I'm going to do is, back here is our toe adjustment for our toe length. You can set these in different heights and they'll change basically your toe through bump. Once again, with all this costal gear, there's heaps of adjustment and everything, which is nice. There's a hole at the top of this. My plan for that was actually to do a limiting strap up to the top, basically similar to what I have on the front suspension, so I can have like a droop limit. But that spot there actually looks like it might work really well for the ride height sensor. There are still other spots that I could do. The droop limiter, I could do it off of here and running up. That might work out better anyway. It'll just be checking tire clearance. I reckon that spot back there is probably where we're going to go with. I reckon that'll work quite well. I can't see any reason why it shouldn't. That's probably the main thing. I might put the wheel on just to get an idea if that top camber bolt position would be any good for the droop limit. I just don't want to snooker myself there and put the ride height sensor there if I'm going to be changing other plans to something that isn't going to work. So we'll just chuck the wheel back on, we'll have a look, see if it's going to work. Well, that's why we check these things. Will work fine for the ride height sensor, but it's going to snooker us with the limit strap because it's going to be all the way in here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's like right up inside the wheel, so no way that would come out. But I had another thought. The shock body here is quite thick. I can get my finger all the way up into it. I'd probably measure it, but I'm wondering if I'd be able to drill a hole and tap an M5 in the back of that there, because that there might give us a pretty good spot. Alright, now that I know that I definitely want to keep that for the droop limit, I don't think I'd get, I reckon I'd get enough purchase to try and put it just offset a little bit. I'll put you guys down and see how we go. Alright, only give drilling this shock body a go. I reckon that'll work out pretty well, having a bit of a look around. There's not really too many other options. We're going to drill it down nice and low. You can feel in behind it, the cartridge isn't anywhere near it, so there's no concerns of that. Do not drill into shocks if you don't know, because yeah, if you drill into the gas cartridge, you'll, for one, stuff the shock, and two, possibly hurt yourself. Little one, don't know if too many people know or of that, but this is only really for metric taps. I don't know how it works for imperial, but if you've got a M5 tap, so the thread pitch on that is 5 by 0.8, the way to work out your drill size is just to take off that 0.8 off of your 5mm. So technically it should be a 4.2mm drill bit you'd use. I've got a 4mm, that'll be fine, but it works for everything. So a 12 by 1.5 pitch, if you want to tap that, you're going to drill the hole out to begin with to 10.5mm. Same 12 by 2mm pitch, you're going to drill it out with a 10mm hole. So it's just, yeah, that's a nice handy one. I know my old man used to have charts in the garage for what your pilot hole size was for each tap and that, but I don't play around with imperial stuff, it confuses me. So with the metric, that's just a nice easy way to go about it. Alright, I think I'm pushing my luck trying to just hold everything here and get an eyeball. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to temporarily mount these where I think they should go. Pencil's absolute favourite way of me mounting things. I promise, pencil, they're possibly temporary. Possibly temporary, pencil, I promise. Alright, not 100% happy with it. There's a bit of tension on the actual arm, which I don't like, but I think that'll just be a case of just getting this bend right, because there's a fair bit of offset to it. But what I want to do now is, we're at full droop at the moment. They're coming up. That's it's a bit. So I think what I'll need to do is, I think I'll need to bend that a bit more and then get it to come back out, so that, because I think it's at the moment kind of touching on the back side here, but I just wanted to see if it was in a good enough spot that it will get me all the way to the top. Come on. I don't think so. Oh, maybe. That's lifting the car now. Let's see that come back down. And I reckon that I've left a little bit on the table at droop, that what I could do is this arm could come down a bit more. So that might work well when I give these a couple of little tweaks. It'll inevitably shorten this length a little bit, so it'll bring it all down. Let's have a quick go at that. Well, I'll call that a win. We just gave that bar a little bit more of a tweak, just to bring like it all back over a little bit closer to the sensor. So we're at full bump now. We'll start bringing it down. There we go. So I'm not too stressed. It does go a little bit over down at the bottom there, but at the end of the day, that's also full extension of the shock, which means I know we won't break anything, but in reality, we're going to be sitting on a like limit strap anyway, so it should never get down to the bottom there. So happy days. I call that a pretty good win. I'm pretty happy with that. There is adjustment. These are slotted, these two holes. So I could actually give it a bit of rotation up once we've got our droop limit in. What that'll do is, as you can see, like you get through here and just a pump gives a fair bit of angle to that arm. So I'm sure that'll give us really good kind of accuracy. Once we do get to the top here, one pump's giving us less degree of rotation. So I don't think it's too bad. I think we'll be okay there, but it is just something to note that we probably will lose a bit of accuracy at the top of the stroke and at the very bottom of the stroke. So could be something that we just have a look at playing around with in the future in regards to kind of maybe if we adjust that sensor, but I think it'll be better than what we've got, which is currently nothing. So win-win. So all right, everyone. I could hear you. We're going to take this out. We'll nutsert it now before I do forget, because I'm going to happen to forget. Well, there you have it. That's one side of the rear done. Brakes are on. I've just got to drill the rotor. Ride height sensors in, obviously not wired up, but that's there's a bit to that. I don't have the plugs for it, so we're actually going to do what's, from what I see, is fairly common in kind of the motorsport stuff, especially when you don't have those odd connectors, is we'll actually solder directly to it and then pot it and then heat shrink over the top of it. And it's actually what's recommended with a lot of the drive-by-wire throttle bodies, is the connection on the drive-by-wires can actually get a bit glitchy. Doug at Ample had issues with that back in the day, kind of told me about it, so I've actually soldered my drive-by-wire throttle. I'll just do the same here. I'll just run it to a pigtail to like a 3-pin Deutsch plug. So that's all good. I don't have any wiring at the rear setup ready for it. The front, however, when I did the wheel speed sensor, I've actually got a 4-pin here, so that has our power, well, 5-volt sensor ground, and it's got 1 pin left for what will be the ride height sensor. So the front's the next one, the rear, the other side rear's easy now that I've worked out where it's going to be. That's kind of the hard part, is generally working out where you're going to mount everything. So don't know if I'll worry about trying to do the front in this video. Who knows, I might just get the other side done on the rear, get those rotors drilled so I can finish that off. Only job after that then will be plumbing. So yeah, this might be a couple of part video, this one, to try and get it all done. There's a bit going on. So yeah, see how we go. We've started editing this video up. It's starting to get to be a fairly long video, but hey, that's what these things take. They're not a quick job every now and then. So we might cut it off there. Next week, I reckon we'll be back on the Pulsar. We'll hopefully get some brakes sorted in that, and then after that, might jump back on the Skyline, maybe get the front height sensors done and the wiring, show you guys what I do for the wiring there. But hey, hope you've enjoyed it. Bit of a different way of doing the ride height sensors, bit more of a budget alternative. I reckon this whole setup for the sensors, I reckon it was about 200 odd bucks for the sensors. So nice cheap alternative to some of the bigger, more expensive setups out there, and something that once again can be done at home in the garage. So cheers for watching. It's been a bit of a longer one. Appreciate you guys who stick around all the way to the end. It's it's cool to watch. Cheers guys, have a good one.